Coming to you live from the swamp, the Gilmore Show.
Howdy and welcome. You know what gets me down? Well, aside from the fact that alligator tail appears on the menu of every second-rate country road sports bar, FYI, we need our tails, it's election season. Election seasons bum me out. Every year when primaries roll around, we get all wild and optimistic. There they go, the hero who rises above the mess, the one who's gonna change the world, solve the climate crisis, turn water into wine, or whatever. But we know the drill. The world hero type always gets close enough without quite cutting it, usually because folks are afraid that their real preferred candidate couldn't possibly bring down the big bad wolf. So folks vote safe. And by the time the primaries are done, we're left choosing between old guy who won't forgive student debt and old guy who won't forgive student debt, but at least he's not a fascist. When I was a gator fresh hatched from an egg, my mama told me, vote the primaries with your heart, the election with your head. But you know what? As much as I love the best gator mama to ever grace the wetlands, that advice sucks. Sorry, Mom. It's not that it sucks because she wasn't spitting her best wisdom, but because our system sucks. If we can't vote what we think is best at every turn, what are we even voting for? Besides crossing your claws that your vote will stop fascism? Thanks to the Electoral College, in the general election, we're technically not even voting for president. Instead, you're asking your state's meeting of electors, pretty pleased with fish bones on top, to agree to vote for your pick. Even if the state's most popular party selects the electors, beyond some fines electors may face, there's no legal demand that an elector follow the will of the people. Electors can and have gone rogue. Not in the fun, handsome, scampish Han Solo Indiana Jones. Basically, anyone Harrison Ford plays, even in real life, the way he responds to questions at Comic-Con kind of way.
I've been blessed with this body.
But in the January 6th smear shit on the Capitol walls, maybe we won't have a democracy in the morning kind of way. Now, if elections all came up peaches and outcomes reflected the popular vote, I'd sit my scaly ass down and let the process do its thing. But it ain't working. Two of our most recent presidents, Bush and Trump, aces at the whole presidential thing if I ever saw them, lost the popular vote, yet won the whole damn election. How is that democracy at work? That's even shittier when you consider that those two presidents chose not one, not two, three, four, but 5 of our last Supreme Court justices. Alito and Roberts for Bush, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Kavanaugh for Trump. Let's see how that's gone. Ooh. Now, sit back and pick your teeth with that idea for a second, folks. That's a Supreme Court majority cherry-picked by presidents that most Americans didn't vote for. How does that represent the ding-dang people? I know, it's bleak as hell. Even without considering the mess of two parties trying to represent the hearts and minds of some 300 million voting Americans. A group of 5 friends has a hard enough time deciding where to go out to eat. The fact that fully explains the long-standing success of the lowest common denominator restaurants like Applebee's. Hey, no offense though, we'll take that sponsorship. How do we expect hundreds of millions of folks to fall in line behind one of two parties? But things might just be changing. More and more states are riled up, tired of the two-party mayhem. And despite how extreme things feel these days, insurrections, police brutality against students, book banning, fighting that's even wilder than last Thanksgiving's Hunger Games level brawling. Sorry again, Mom, we did replace the carafe. 37% of U.S. Americans consider themselves moderates. With a two-party system, we don't see those in-betweenies poking their heads up. Instead, we're stuck voting for a right whose wacky races careening their way into fascism and a left desperately digging their heels into the mud instead of moving forward. But most everyday folks, their political beliefs fall somewhere smack dab in the ideological middle. Less fascists versus leftists. More uncomfortable Thanksgiving wedged between Uncle Neil, who, while not a Trump is the second coming bozo, still drops some eyebrow-raising facts. And you're blue no matter who, NIMBY banker cousin. Why another Thanksgiving reference? Well, if you duked it out 3 years running before even carving the turkey, you'd still be unpacking the old trauma too. Instead of buying into the two-party system and choosing between two candidates you're lukewarm about at best, ranked choice voting lets you, well, rank candidates from first choice to last. At the risk of traumatizing everyone, let's go back to the 2020 election real quick. If ranked choice voting had been the norm, there wouldn't have been debate about opting for the lesser of two evils. Instead of choosing between Biden or Trump, you'd have ranked a handful of candidates from zero to hero. Biden and Trump, sure, but also Sanders, Warren, Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian, Howie Hawkins, the Green Socialist, and even the Vermin Supreme himself. You'd rank your top pick number one and your bottom shelf choice the highest number. Any folks you'd rather gouge your eyeballs out with one claw than vote for. You just leave them blank. Then, every voter's top choice is counted first. Whichever candidate gets 50% of the vote wins. If no candidate gets 50%, then the candidate who got the lowest percent of votes is knocked out of the race. But everyone who picked Vermin Supreme isn't SOL. Instead, ranked choice voting kicks into action. Those people whose number one pick got the boot then have their number two pick counted and applied to the general vote. And if nobody's past 50% just yet, the whole thing happens again. If this sounds too crazy to pull off, just ask the 25 million folks in Australia. They've been at it since 1918. And if they can juggle that and fighting off dinner plate-sized spiders, well, heck, I think we can too. In Maine and Alaska, ranked choice voting is already chugging along. Since 2018, Maine has used ranked choice voting in elections, and they currently use it at every level of government. Folks adapted quickly, and now it's seen as an easy-to-use alternative to the old voting system. And in the states where ranked choice voting's taken the stage, more moderate folks have taken the win. In Alaska, the non-MAGA GOP representative Lisa Murkowski won her seat over an election denier. And Mary Peltola, a Democratic moderate, beat out the far-right's Palin for state senate. Ranked choice voting is only growing. Dozens of places around the country have put the new method to the test in local and state elections. Many folks cite that ranked choice voting makes them feel like they're no longer throwing away their vote by going independent. Just think back to the total panic in 2016 that folks felt when they even toyed with the idea of writing in Bernie's name. Ranked choice voting lets you put your ideal candidate first. No game theory needed. And this here Gator may be as leftist as it gets, but I liked ranked choice voting because it uplifts the voices of the people independent of my own ideology. Instead of buckling along party lines, folks vote for the candidates they think represent them best. And even if this means that, sure, technically, someone could write in their favorite Nazi as the first place choice, the fact of the matter is that the extremists won't be getting more votes than before. The few votes they will get will be diluted. Most of the data out about ranked choice voting says the polls skew more centrist, less extreme. And I don't know about you, but from here on my swamp porch, a kind of boring and middle-way candidate is a welcome breeze compared to the literal Nazis gobbling up voters' attention. I mean, Nazis! It saves us from the ping-pong of emotions and the waiting game that leaves many throwing up the old shrug emoji and saying, fuck it, and not even voting when the runoff comes up. Runoffs have a 38% drop in voter turnout that is mostly from, you guessed it, working-class Americans who can't get a day off for a dental surgery. Never mind a damn election redo. And for all you money-wise gators out there, ranked choice voting isn't just nice because it strengthens democracy, it saves money too. Because ranked choice voting doesn't ever lead to runoff elections. Tax dollars don't ever fund a whole other election cycle. Some folks worry it's confusing. Well, let me be clearer than the Wakula Springs. Folks are not getting confused by ranked choice voting. There seems to be some confusion about confusion with all the fever pitch that concern has reached. But as a whole, it's been pretty dang easy for everyone involved. Naysayers claim it won't save us from the mess of the two-party system. Take Australia, who still has two major parties in play. However, their country has one big thing going for them the U.S. doesn't, and it ain't kangaroos or the Great Barrier Reef. And it sure as hell ain't Vegemite. Ugh, that stuff is rough. Ranked choice signals the people's goals and tips the direction that their elected officials work in. And despite the two major parties, more third-party winners in Australia grab Senate and local government seats. And local and state government policies can change the fabric of our society, folks. Ha ha ha! Check it out. Ranked choice voting isn't a silver bullet. Switching to it won't magically trigger hydro-powered flying cars flying over lush forests teeming with the dodo. And it won't squish Nazis out of existence overnight. But it does help engage folks in a real conversation about working together to get our government, at least semi-functional. A copper bullet, mayhaps. Ranked choice voting works, y'all. It works for the people, it works for the government, and it works for the candidates. Most importantly, it gives folks a chance to let their voices be heard in what feels increasingly like standing above a well and screaming into it hoping for a wish to get answered. Only for the scary ring girl to climb out. And if there's one thing we can agree on, it's that girl from the well and the ring thing is scary as hell. So there you have it. Ranked choice voting. One way we can improve our system. Ha ha. Now stop eating our tails.